Hello peeps, Struggled here, bringing you another Starmade tutorial. Today we are talking about how weapon systems work, what the best combinations are, and why. A weapon system in Starmade can consist of three separate systems. A master system, this is always required. It could have a slave system, and it could have a effect system. Now, the master system determines the type of how we are going to apply our damage. The antimatter cannon is kind of a projectile thing, missile is a missile, and beam is like a laser beam, and pulse creates a pulsing. Would I link, for example, such a system to another such system, then this would be the slave. The slave system basically then alters attributes of the master system. We'll get to that later. What we could also add is an effect system. Now, what determines the power of a weapon is the systems combined. These here, the total size of the weapon. If you take the total size, then you basically know that this kind of weapon is going to make 10 times this damage per second. In any way how the damage is going to be delivered. For example, if something does a huge amount of damage, it might have a very long reload time. So to start, we first need to know what our basic shot is going to look like. So it does 10 damage. That's how fast it travels, like 973. That's the range, 4K. It reloads every 1 second, and each shot requires 100 energy. Okay. Now, if we hook this up now to a other cannon computer, and we are opening this thing again, then it does 2 damage per shot. Range and speed stays the same, but it fires 10 times a second. Because we now have 2 systems, right? Here. And each of those shots requires 20 energy. Because it does 2 damage, 20 energy, 2 damage, right? But fires 10 times a second. So we have to times 10 all those values. So this would be 200 damage per second. And this would be, this would be 20 damage per second, and this would be 200 energy per second. Now, 20 damage per second you see up here, they're still stating 10. This is because this thing up here cannot calculate or factor in slaves and effect systems. So pretty always ignore those values up there. So we are back to, we have 2 total size, and those will be doing 2 times 10 damage per second, okay? So basically we just turned our normal gun, which like shoots like this, into a rapid fire gun, which like shoots like this. This is of course because this is 100% effect, because it's one block to one other block, so 100% effect. So if you would, for example, have 5 master systems and just 1 slave system, this one slave system could just increase the fire rate about 20% instead of, yeah. You'll figure it out. Now let's see what the beam does, okay? We open up our panel again and we check what does the beam do. This is interesting. 80 damage per shot. Ooh, right? And wow, cannon speed, this thing is like double as fast as before. And triple the range. That's like long range sniping cannons here. Which are actually really a cool thing in the game. Reload time 4 seconds at 100%. So this also includes why here's the 80, right? Because again we have 2 systems and 800 power per shot. Okay, so alright. So we have 2 thingies, those should be doing 20 damage per second, right? So it fires for 80 damage, taking 800 damage, but every 4 seconds. Meaning we have to divide those 80 damage over 4 seconds. Bam, we're back at 20 damage per second. See, we always get back to total size times 10, that's the damage you will do over time. Beam weapons in general increase range, increase reload time, but also increase damage per shot. And also the speed, right? Let's hook it up to a missile thing. Now let's see what happens here then. Okay, so we are doing 4 damage per shot. Interesting. Same cannon speed, same range, but we are doing 10 shots. And we have a 2-second delay. So 400. Okay, because, yeah, that's 10 shots, so these are 40 damage. Power consumption 400, kind of right, because we have 2 systems which fire every second. 2 times 2 is 4, right-ish? So again, we are back to total size times 10 is the DPS. Okay, this creates kind of a... Let me quickly demonstrate this. See those few numbers popping up there? This kind of creates a shotgun effect. Alright, let's hook this up to a pulse computer. And now we are noticing something really strange, because this thing does, of course, the highest damage, 320. Again, takes 3.2k energy to fire. And reload time is 16 seconds, right? So this is slow, right? The range stays the same, speed stays the same. Now, talking about basic attributes of our basic standard master systems, the cannon has a penetration effect. And you see now, when doing high amounts of damage, we will have like a penetration of 4 blocks deep, those being the numbers of each of the blocks. Huge weapon systems can like really pierce really deep into enemy structures, so that is why cannons are a nice way of affecting enemy ships. So, in general, let's sum this up. We have a rapid fire effect, we have a make it long range, make it fast speed, and also make it higher damage per shot but longer reload time thing. We have a shotgun effect, kind of, and we have a give me the really long reload time but then also give me the high alpha damage thing. The next important thing is to look at how missiles behave, because missiles gain additional attributes. Damage does 300 damage, takes 1500 energy for this, and reload time 15 seconds. Range 6000, that's all default. Missile speed quite slow, right? 186. Yeah, so those 300 divided by 15 seconds, these are actually 20 damage per second. That's interesting. But maybe they left this higher because the blast radius, where is it? Here, radius, spreads this damage out. So if they would reduce the missile to like the same damage as the other more focused weapon types, they hardly would do any damage on any surface. Let's check out how the missile changes with the antimatter cannon as slave. We still have a dumbfire missile, that didn't change, so this thing is only able to fire in a straight line. I still have 1 shot. We have a reduced reload time, we are firing each second now, and the damage got greatly reduced and the power consumption goes up because we have like 2 modules now, blah 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 blah. Nothing new here. Now this is really, really interesting. One of my favorite combinations in the game, because now this missile is a lock-on missile. We have increased speed, we have increased range. So pretty much if this thing fires, it will lock on and it will hunt the target down, no matter what. Like, be it a really fast fighter or something, it most likely is going to take it down. Reload time is pretty high, 45 seconds. And it also requires a bunch of power, 9k. In this regard, let me just say something. Missiles, especially with the beam missile or the pulse, they are high alpha damage weapons. Now the thing is, in the moment the missile fires, it will have to have all the energy required to fire in that exact moment. If you intend to, for example, work with AMCs and do them rapid fire, you probably do not even require any power storage. because the regeneration of the ship will uphold basically the power the rapid firing guns require. But if you are working with missiles and those fire only every 45 seconds, then make sure at the end of a 45-second cycle, all the power storage is filled up again so the missile is able to fire again. This is an important point here, because this is where often people struggle, because they do not, reflect that this gun suddenly has such a huge power demand that it can't fire just out of the normal 50k power the ship has. So they need to add power storage to it in order to make the missile fire. It won't if the power is not available. So that's not the missile is broken, it's just you don't have enough power. Okay. Now this is another interesting combination, missile with missile. We remember this is kind of the shotgun effect. Now for missiles this does also another thing, because this turns them into heat-seeking missiles. I'm talking about them because we are firing 10 missiles at a time now, and they are just heat-seeking. Heat-seeking means they don't care if friend or foe. Anything in close proximity they are trying to aim for. Damage is reduced, of course, because we get many of them. Reload time is pretty much standard. Range is also standard, but speed greatly reduced. So they are heat-seeking, but they are very slow. Okay. Power consumption is 3k. Yeah, whatever. Now, pulse. We remember, slow firing, high alpha damage. This is what in Starmade circles we are referring to this kind of weapon as a nuke, because it has such a long reload time, but if it fires, it pretty much like blasts everything into pieces. Also has an increased radius, so the really powerful missiles will blow pretty big holes into stuff. So missile speed even slower. So this is crawling slow, right? Pretty much anything with an engine could probably escape this. So do not expect to take down fighters with that thing. That's not gonna work at all. Now beam weapons, same thing. Pretty much if we hook those up to the rapid fire thing, we make a beam become permanent because it fires as fast as Let's check the raw values quickly. Damage per tick 10, that's pretty much like the gun. It just has a shorter range. It has kind of a reload thingy time. Anyway, what the beam does is it fires and then it has to recharge. And pretty much while it fires, it does 5 ticks where the damage is applied slowly after each other. With the AMC, I already showed you, you make the beam permanent. With another beam weapon, you increase the range, you increase the reload time, but also increase the damage. That's it. Beam and missile, yeah, shotgun effect. Multiple beams, yay! Beam and pulse, well, probably the strongest beam. Range, okay, yeah, still the same. Beams are not affected by speed, so this doesn't do anything much to it. But the thing is, pulse normally, like when we used pulse with missiles, we noticed that it would give it a blast radius, right? Beam has no blast radius, so there is nothing the pulse can add to the beam. So pulse, let's quickly check the raw stuff. Damage 100, rate 10, reload time 10 seconds, 500 power consumption, yada yada yada. Okay, so shield damage bonus, hull damage bonus. Okay, now the pulse just does this thing. Okay, and this has, like, it explodes like a few meters away from that thing in front of the block, right? And then does its blast radius. Now the interesting part is what happens if you do a pulse with a pulse, because then this thing becomes really big and really far away as well. Now AMCs, of course, you can lower damage, lower reload time. With beam, this could be really interesting because this could shove the pulse away quite a big thing. Let's see if other values change as well. We have a reload time of 30 seconds. We have a range of 25. Let's see, what is the normal range? Range of 10. This puts the point where the pulse goes off quite behind the target here. So let's try this again. Okay, not that far behind. Anyway, and missile that could be an interesting one. Let's quickly see what that does. Multiple pulses then, I guess. Range 10, reload time, power consumption. Let's just see if the effect changes. No, still a normal pulse. So missile kind of does nothing to it. Okay, good. Really interesting here with pulse and pulse. Big one. Bam. Okay, so now we have covered how the slave affects those four master systems. We also have effects added. Now, I would like to keep this short because they are just going to get applied to whatever combination of master-slave you have here, right? Now, piercing does the following. Piercing is good against armor. So it's not good against system, and it does absolutely nothing to shields. Keep that in mind. With a lot of piercing, you won't bring down your enemy's shields. So if you have a heavily armored target, piercing pretty much shreds armor. Explosive. Explosive adds like a little explosive effect to stuff. Except beams, because beams have no range at all. 100% explosive on a cannon, like those 3 blocks we have now as cannons, they're not doing stuff to it pretty much. This kind of does not work because right now I'm just way too small. So let's see, basically, let me beef this up. If we have a weapon system that does explosive damage, this basically means that while we are shooting one block, we are also damaging the other blocks next to it. See, the blocks next to the block we are hitting getting damaged as well. And that's kind of prime example what you do not want. For example, let's say you make a gun and you are adding explosive to the gun. Then you probably do not want to make that thing rapid fire, because what you want is to make this alpha blasting right through this block and taking all the 4 other blocks with them. So most likely you would use explosive on a projectile like an AMC only in combination with a beam weapon, just because then it would, like the entire penetration it offers, like 27 blocks. Around 20 of those, it basically would break all the 5 blocks in the go, like creating real tunnels. This is what you are aiming for when you are intending to use explosive with projectiles. Then better use a slow projectile but heavy, hard-hitting projectile to ensure that all the 5 blocks in a tunnel behind here blow up at once. Let me quickly demonstrate. Okay, we're here in our turret. As you can see, 2 weapon systems. I'll explain punch in a second. Let's first show the effect of this long-range sniping explosive gun, okay? Well, maybe we need a camera. Okay, let's use that gun first. So you see that we have this entry, 5 blocks destroyed, 1 block, 5 blocks destroyed. Here angle, again 5 blocks destroyed, 5 blocks destroyed, 1, 5, 1, 5. This pretty much goes for quite a while, right? So we are actually destroying multiple blocks at the same time. See here, the sideways blocks getting taken out. And then somewhere later in the shot, yeah, here. Here the power of the explosive effect, or the, you know, the values at which the blocks get penetrated. Let's see here. So first block gets hit by this value. Second block gets hit by this value. Yada, yada, yada. And down here are the lower ones. So here the damage is not high enough to spread the damage to the other blocks around. I mean, the damage still spreads. As you can see, those are darker than that one. But they did not blow up. So, explosive, as I said, you really want to combine with something hard-hitting to make these deep holes into enemy ships. Okay, so while we're at it, let's see what punch through does. Punch through basically increases this number and also increases the amount of blocks taken out at a second. Now, these are not as many as the other thing, but this thing fires around 4 times a second. So, yeah, pretty much damage is devastating. So these were just a few hits, right? And you already see deep holes. The good thing about punch through also is that it has no penalty against shields. It has no penalty against anything else. It just increases the depth of penetration, and that probably is a good thing. Alright, hopping back into our ship. So, explosive takes out stuff. Let's see. We were here talking about AMCs, talking about this. So we probably want to combine this. EMP. EMP is very, very funny. EMP does no damage. See what the energy does? We are basically just sucking out the energy out of the enemy ship. So we are not doing any damage. We are just soaking up the energy. It's funny. Punch through, as I said, makes deeper holes. Iron. You might like iron. Iron is especially good against shields. Without iron and firing on this thing, shield goes down like this. Now with iron and 10 more blocks, just keep that in mind, shield goes down like this. Because iron basically doubles the amount of damage to shield. Though iron cannot affect armor, structure or anything else at 100%. If you want to make an iron weapon that still does damage to the actual structure of the enemy, then you might not want to apply iron at a 100%. So to leave a bit of normal damage in there. Overdrive is also another really neat little thing. Overdrive increases your damage by factor 4, but also increases your power consumption by factor 6. So, if you have very little space and still want something powerful, Overdrive is possibly a good way to go. Okay, so we have 30 damage per second. We are firing 10 times a second, so that's 300 damage. And we are requiring 300 energy per shot, so that's 3k per second. Or everything else stays the same. The effect power consumption modifier is 5, so we need 5 times the damage. The effect ratio is 100%, that's 1. And the shield bonus is times 2. Explosive radius 0, armor efficiency pretty much stays the same. So yeah, that's... Is that just good against shields, or is this just... Anyway, you see, we are rapidly draining our energy, but we are also doing lots of damage. So, Overdrive good for small systems with enough energy to uphold the firing. I hope this could clear stuff up for you guys. I really suggest you also build yourself such a thing and compare those values, and then make your own decisions as well. So now let's get into the systems which really established themselves, okay? So first would be rapid firing AMCs in pretty much any combination that makes sense. So punch through is a very welcome one. Overdrive is a very welcome one for small guns. EMP, iron, all nice. Not so often seen, but still nice. Most likely people will use AMCs, rapid fire AMCs with punch through effect. Also AMCs with beam is a combination you see more often. Most likely then with explosive effect at the same time. In some cases iron, because then it's just to take out the enemy shields before you engage in combat range, because through the beam you have increased range, so before you hop into the normal weapon range of the cannons, you already have your enemy shields down. So that could be considered. Missiles. Most likely you will find missile beam or missile pulse. Lots of people still use missile in single ships because of the heat-seeking event. That's cool, right? For some real battleships, well, missile beam most likely is the more used variant, just because the faster tracking missiles and faster moving missiles can also hunt down smaller and more agile targets. Alright, beam weapons hardly used because the reduced range of the weapon, which is kind of sad, often used in combination though with iron effect because they don't miss. So once you are in beam range, but beam is really cool, for example, in combination with an AMC, you know, for constant streams. If you want to apply effects like the stop computer, just keeping things in place, a push effect, shoving stuff away, a pull effect, pulling stuff towards you. So in combat, stopping an enemy and then having another weapon like hammering in it, that really might be an advantage. Hardly used though, because of the beam's short range, you first have the problem of actually getting into the target range. So yeah. Pulse, strongly underused. I don't know really why. There are some AI drones which use them as basically a brawling thing, so they pretty much also ram other ships, which is kind of fun to watch. I could not imagine what, like in real PvP, the pulse weapon could do. What is really cool though is keeping a pulse weapon in a ship, basically aimed at all the quarters, all the areas where people can walk in a ship. And in case of an enemy intrusion, everybody just get into a computer and fire this weapon, and pretty much everybody who is not in a computer will take the damage, thus be taken out. So this could be really used as a security mechanism inside ships. I also like the ramming and pulsing thing stuff. It's kind of fun, but more likely you will use pulse as a secondary thing. For example, the missile, creating some nukes, which basically with explosive you get a really huge effect radius. Let's see that. Radius 58, right? So those holes are enormous. They're like, technically, if you make your weapon strong enough, you could blow up this thing in one... just saying. You know, the radius is enormous. You still need to apply all the damage to blow it up. That might be a few million damage to blow such a thing up in a single shot. But could work. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped you guys along with figuring out what those are for. And if you like this video, so also please leave a like, and we will see each other next time. Bye!